So I just got out of trial on Zoom. I'm so buried in legal terms and I don't even understand what most of the trial was about. It seemed to be like the defense's counsel was trying to streamline the upcoming trial on the 30th, and I believe they succeeded wildly at everything they wanted to do. I had a witness list of about 15 people that I was going to have testify on my behalf. They have all been denied. Every single one of my witnesses will not be allowed to testify on my behalf. Apparently, there's some rule in the Hawaii law books that I didn't understand or know anything about, wherein I have to give the opposing counsel contact info for my entire witness list, and then opposing counsel can badger all of my witnesses pre-trial. And because I did not do that, therefore, all witnesses have now been denied. So once again, I am headed to trial completely by myself. I am not allowed to call witnesses. They will probably block most of the exhibits that I plan to submit as evidence. Bear in mind again that I have no criminal record of any kind. I've never harmed anybody. I've never threatened to harm anybody. And yet, after 6 years of going to trial with an extreme parental alienator, I'm still not allowed to call witnesses. I'm still not allowed to present evidence. I can only say what my experience is directly in front of the court. And then the judge can either believe me or not. They also somehow railroaded through this completely ridiculous finding of facts, which I wrote a long and detailed response to, which suddenly just doesn't exist at all, despite the fact that I submitted it to the court almost immediately after I got the initial, completely egregiously false finding of facts by the defense counsel. At this point, I'm completely at a loss. As usual, Everett and Grace have no access to their father. They're not likely to have any access to their father. Nor do I have any legal means or grounds to alter that situation for them or myself. Also, keep in mind that Everett hasn't seen anybody on his entire paternal side of the family in over 5 years. Grace hasn't seen her grandparents, uncles, aunts, nobody. And Mrs. Garcia has now continued to make that the reality for them indefinitely. Now, the real hearing is on the 30th. That's next Monday. But again, they've already blocked all of my witnesses and they've blocked most of my evidence already and completely validated a completely erroneous and false finding of facts by the defendant's counsel. So once again, I'm coming to the battle with not only one hand tied behind my back, but both hands tied behind my back, also on my knees, and also with the opposing party with a gun to my head before we even get to the courtroom. So I'm sure this trial is going to be completely fair and valid. At this point, I'm so ashamed of living in this country. I'm so ashamed with the egregious manner in which my children and I have been treated. Not, of course, by their own mother, who really does have a lot of very serious, deep-rooted mental issues, but by the legal system, which is absolutely corrupt and disgusting. Innocent until proven guilty? I don't think so. Based only on the accusation of a deranged psychopath, I've been barred from visiting my children almost entirely for 5 years. I file appeal after appeal. I go to court again and again and again. None of it makes any difference. By the time I actually get to court, I'm not allowed to call witnesses. I'm not allowed to present evidence. And it really seems like at this point, the judge is just going to make the same ruling they make every time in favor of the defendant, despite the fact that I have no criminal record of any kind. I've never harmed anybody. I've never threatened to harm anybody. Actually, the defendant hasn't even accused me of harming anybody or threatening to harm anybody. And yet there's still no justice for Everett and Grace, still no justice for me, for my parents, anybody in my family. They're not even allowed to testify. Once again, I've offered a $20,000 bonus to anyone who can get me partial custody of my children. Literally, you get me some kind of partial custody, I will pay you $20,000 instantly. Because I'm at my wit's end, there's nothing more that I can do that I haven't already done. The defense claims that I need to hire some kind of therapist for something. As soon as I try to hire a therapist, Mrs. Garcia calls the therapist and tells them that they're inappropriate. Then the therapist calls me back and says they can provide the service that I'm supposed to hire them for. And this goes around and around and around, with the upshot being absolutely no change in anything, no visitation of my children, no change to the legal status quo, and the continued abuse of my children by the defendant. And not a damn thing I can do about it. I'm submitting this onto YouTube as a public record for the children to see when they get older, in case they're curious why their dad wasn't around, so that they know he wanted to be. I love my children more than anything on the planet, And as much as this is hurting me, I know it's hurting them much more, which is why I've been fighting for them so hard this entire time, only to be completely thwarted and maligned by the defendant, a bipolar narcissist with a history of drug and alcohol abuse. Everett and Grace, I'm so sorry. I've fought so hard for so long, only to be completely thwarted by your mother. I'm so sorry she's doing this to you guys. I would have done anything to avoid this outcome for you. She is a sociopath who only cares about what she wants in life. That is why you guys have been completely under her control the entire time since the divorce. As soon as you're old enough to make your own decisions, I'll be here for you to give you anything you need in life. But at this point, I have very little hope that that's going to be within the next 5 to 6 years. I love you two more than anything.